Morning everyone, it's just gone past 8 o'clock here in Les Sables d'Olonne, and the sun's still not up. It's quite dark outside, but in the rest of the world down around Australia, where Igor and Mark are both heading towards the coast, it's late in the afternoon. Long days there, it's summer there, and it's getting towards the middle of winter here, I should say. Well, the shortest day, December 21st, will be our shortest day in this part of the world and the longest day down south, so the nights in the Southern Ocean are quite short. We'll sort out the back end of the fleet first. Igor, I'll just push this up here, steadily making way towards Albany here. He's got no wind at the moment, so he's only making 1.5 knots, and his team is not there for another couple of days anyway, so he's not in a rush. If we push forward with the weather here, we'll come forward a day. You'll see slow to get to tail breeze, so that'll get him moving for maybe 3 knots or something. Go forward another day through to the 5th, some more light winds, so he's going to be, that's 2 days, he's still not there. We'll go forward to the 6th, still light winds, so he's not there, that's 3 days. So I'm just trying to work out an ETA here. Go through to the 7th, oh boy, another hole. He's not there on the 7th, and that's 4 days away. So will he get there on the 8th? Maybe. So he's still got a while to go. I reckon it's still going to be another 4 or 5 days before he gets there, before a breeze fills in. Anyway, seems happy enough, except for the barnacles and all the bits, and then he'll be happy to be there. For Mark, a little bit different story. He's within striking distance now. He's only about 130 miles away from Adelaide this morning. These positions are about 3 hours ago, so he will be a little bit closer because he's been making pretty good time. 4.7 knots. He'll be, maybe 110 miles or so from Adelaide, and I think he should have fuel left, so he may well be getting ready to motor all the way in, because basically the rest, if we go forward 24 hours, and not a lot of wind, and whatever wind he's got is light headwinds. So if he's got the fuel, I'm sure he'll start motoring. He would like to get there as soon as he can, certainly in daylight, and if he can make 5 knots and he can motor at 5 if he's got the fuel, he might be there late tomorrow afternoon. So that's Tuesday afternoon Adelaide time, but it could be late. I reckon he'll probably be there 8 or 9 o'clock if he can keep the engine going. I'm not sure whether he has got fuel. I haven't asked him that question. If not, he might not be there till Wednesday morning. So watch this space. We'll push the positioning up to hourly, and once he gets towards the middle of the Gulf here, he's coming in he hasn't got a detailed chart. He's only got a large chart of the area, but he knows this stuff really well. He sailed there pretty, half his life, so he's not worried. There's not a lot of things to hit. You've got clear water going through the middle, so lack of charts is not a problem for Mark. We'll look forward to that, and we'll keep you updated. So now we'll go across here, make it another scale. You can see Suhaili's making a dash to catch up to Tapio at the moment. Suhaili's got his eyes set on towards Tapio, heading across to the bottom of New Zealand, and Tapio's still lucking out with the weather. He made some easting in the last few days, which is kind of cool. I'll just stop this from pumping. Okay, he made some easting because the wind went a fair bit more northerly, but now it's come around to the northeast, so he's tacked across. Also has to get around the Bounty Islands in here. I'm not sure what, hang on, I'll get you to today's weather. There's today's weather. You can see it's a little bit easterly in it, so nearly northeast. So he's tacked across on that, but the problem is it's going to swing, it'll swing again shortly. Quite strong winds. He's probably got gusting over 30 knots there. Sea will be picking up to about 4 meters or so, maybe even a bit more, so it'll be an uncomfortable ride. He's making 3.6 knots in all that. Pretty reasonable, all things considered. But if we come forward, we'll come forward a day, see what he gets tomorrow. And it's a bit the same, but it's swung a little bit more around to the northeast maybe, so it's a little heading him a bit. So we'll probably start heading out here to the northwest. I don't think he'll tack across on that because it's still not looking good the next day. This is day 2 from now. Okay, he's underway. That's quite good. I'm seeing this for the first time this morning, and he'll like that. So he would definitely tack when that wind swings across. That's a slight west in sort of northwesterly direction, he'll tack across and he'll come straight across here heading on the run line. So that's good news for Tapio, but that's still the 5th, that's still 2 days away. So somewhere between, soon he's going to be on his way, but how long will it last? If we go across to next day, day 6, yep, following breezes. Okay, so the 6th is okay. If we go through to the 7th, it's getting very light, but at least he's on his way. So that's good news for Tapio. I think his nightmare of the last nearly 2 weeks is just about over, and he'll be back on track, and then he'll just have to address the issue with the barnacles. But it looks like it's going to go light on the end. He might have a chance to get in the water. That's the 7th. Let's go through to the 8th. Again, light following breezes. The sea will drop out. So you never know what he may or may not be able to do. He'll certainly be happy to get going again. Again, if he's up here, and I don't know whether he will be, he could be. It's light headwinds, but it's not going to last for long. So Tapio's back in the game, but boy, he's lost some ground. Let's look at where he is in relation to Istvan. Remembering he was quite close, within a day or so of Istvan, but now, as it stands today, bearing in mind he's going to lose some ground in the next 24 hours as well, he's nearly 1,500 miles behind Istvan. So that's pretty substantial drama for poor old Tapio, but that's the name of the game. When Suhaili was here, had 20 days of easterly component winds in this part of the world, and unfortunately Tapio got stuck behind the gate. It was slammed shut before he could get underway. So coming back here to the middle fleet, the most interesting one is Susie and Uku, to see if anyone's making ground on anyone else. Nope, still holding nearly exactly the same. So 380 nautical miles distance between the two of them, and Uku's making 6.2 knots, Susie's making 5.3 knots. So it's a little bit up and down. We're going to just watch this space. Susie's on the hunt, and Uku knows that. They're talking to each other on the radio, so they're having a bit of a fun time. And then Istvan, who is plagued with his steering problems, has now dropped back to about 750 miles behind Susie. That's going to be a challenge for Istvan. He'll be happy just to get around the Cape Horn with the way his steering is right now. So we'll follow their tweets with great interest. I'm going to have a word to Uku, by the way. He's gone into the Igor syndrome of saying okay, not telling us what's going on. I'm going to ask him, hey, we want to know. So hopefully we'll see some better stories in the tweets from Uku. Susie still hasn't mentioned anything about water. At least she's sailing, she's happy, but I think she's still getting low on water, so that'll be interesting. Istvan's now is doing 5.3 knots. Let's look at their weather for, I should have brought that back. We're looking at it's nearly the same. This is real-time weather now, and I'm surprised because Susie's got a little bit less, 5.3. Yeah, that makes sense. So Uku's making 6.2 in a better breeze than Susie. Susie's only doing 5.3, and Istvan's got a nice breeze there, but still 5.3. So if we push this forward a day, come forward one day, what's happening? Okay, Istvan's going to get a solid southerly. Seas will pick up 5 metres maybe. That's not a storm, but it's certainly solid. He's going to be getting gusts up maybe up to 40 knots. It'll be blowing 30, 35 knots maybe. Typical Southern Ocean stuff from the south, and he wants to go to the east, so that's going to be challenging. You might find him starting to head out to the northeast because he doesn't want to go beam onto those seas. Some of them will be whitecaps and breaking, little surfs and stuff. Susie will get a good kick here from behind before the heavier winds fill in, and Uku's going to slow up. He's got headwinds there, so you're going to see Susie take some ground on Uku, which is quite interesting. Let's see how this one forms up. So we go forward another day. And Uku's going to be roaring along. In fact, I might just go back here and we'll just click this through so you can see how it's forming. So I'll just go every three hours here. We'll just see how it's forming up. It's coming down on top of Uku from the northwest, so he'll get moving again. Susie's going to get a big kick from the south, and then it's going to envelop them all. The centre of this thing is just below them, so at least they're on the top end of it, which is going to send them in the right direction. Very squally. You can see you've got 60, 65 knots there, a little bit of gusting. That'll be solid 50 knots gusting 65. There's another peak here with Susie, so they could get anything. This sort of weather, and I'll just knock off the, where are anyway, knock off the skiing. This sort of weather gets very squally and confused, because you can see here you've got very relatively light winds. There you've got heaps more. You've got this squall line here, so it could mean that it's hard to predict exactly what they're going to get. They'll have to be ready for anything. So we'll go to the next one. Oh, it's stopped. So we'll just hit that again, and I can bounce it through every 3 hours. Looks like it's the worst of it's just going to miss Susie, but she will have progressed a little bit, because this is on the 5th, yeah, so she's going to be right on her name. She'll get kicked north, and she'll miss this, so I'll monitor that, and I might send them, because that's quite severe there, remembering that we're on a large scale. I mean, on a big picture, if we go smaller, you can see the intensity of it all. That's quite a lot there. Uku will be going along. So, and if we now go back, you'll see what's coming on here. So Susie doesn't want to go any further south, but I think that'll sort itself out. As this is coming across, she'll get pushed to the northeast, which will keep her above the centre of it. And I'm now going the other way, so it's every 3 hours. And Uku's a bit the same. I might just tip them off there not to go too far south at the moment, because you don't want to be down in here. That's going to be quite big, so looks like an advisory for Uku for sure. And then it passes over, and they're back to a southwesterly airflow once this front goes through. So there's a bit of excitement there over the next couple of days for these guys, and it'll certainly keep them moving in the right direction. I'll scale this back now so you can see what goes on. And I'll put the zone back in there. So so by then Uku will be over the corner, and he can head down towards Cape Horn, and it should be pretty straightforward. So that's all pretty good. We can manage that. I will be telling them about that low pressure system coming through. Now to Mark, he's made great time going around the corner and making good progress, trying to catch us on Luke, who's just out of the picture, but we'll address that here just so we can see. Good speed around the corner, and the weather's looking reasonable at the moment. In fact, I'm going to shrink that because you need to see what's happening. So we might see Jean-Luc. No, we can't. He's up there. So I'll leave him out of the picture so you can see what's going to happen to Mark. There's the Falklands there. He needs to make a decision in the next... I'll bring this back to real time now. Wind's going light, so this is the weather at the moment, but he's still doing 7.8 knots, bearing in mind that this weather map is about an hour or so. In fact, it's 2 hours ahead of the ahead of Mark's actual position there. These positions at 4 o'clock UTC. It's now 7 o'clock UTC, so the positions are 3 hours old, but the weather is actually an hour in advance, so it's nearly 4 hours ahead of the position. If that makes sense to yourself there, I'll just stop that from zooming at the moment. Okay, so what's happening? What's Mark going to get? At the moment, it's reasonably favourable, but it's light. And then very quickly, if we go through about 8 hours, it's still on the beam, so the wind's coming down here. I'll pick this up a little bit back and forward so you can see it's on the beam. We go forward to the next day. He's got a tailwind, so that's okay. He'll be making his way. He's got to decide whether he wants to go to the east or to the west or to the east of the Falklands, and then comes through on the 5th, which is a couple of days ahead. Still looking good. So 2 days out, he's still looking good to get past the Falklands, and then on the 6th, so that's 3 days out, still looking good. So he's going to be past the Falklands by then in nice sailing. So that's pretty cool. If we go through to the 7th now, again, he's getting a kick. And once he's up here, he'll probably ride with that, but he could hold north if he wanted to. He could try and hold it, or he could run with it, depending on what he wants to do with his tactics as he goes further north. Because you can see here, you've got this sort of high, the South Atlantic high is way over to the side, and there's this other big monster developing here. We don't know what's going to happen with that in the future, but... he'll be, the decisions are pretty straightforward for him. This is on the 8th, so we've got 5 days ahead. It starts to get a bit of a slant here, and I think he'll probably just follow it around and maybe go around the back. We'll just have to wait and see. But no big storms for Mark. It's all looking pretty straightforward there for 5 days in advance. Jean-Luc, however, has got some issues coming up where he needs to decide on best course of action. So he's making pretty good time. If we look if we look up here, the objective, the worst part, he's got to get north, and this is the area that's instability, where you get the South Atlantic high, which could be headwinds. As it turns out, he's got a little low pressure system forming right beside him, just beside him and behind him, which is good because generally it's going around clockwise, and it's going to push him north. So he's been riding that pretty successfully, but it's going to come very close and could become quite demanding. So for now, he's making nearly 6 knots, 5.9 knots, heading pretty much due north, and the sea would be reasonable. 24 hours from now, this low pressure system has gone through and he's behind it, but he's had some big winds. So I'll just bounce that for the next 3 hours. I've just sent him a weather alert about 5 o'clock this morning, and I'll just, hang on, I've got to hit that, and you can see how this one affects his position. So that's now, this is 3 hours ahead. He'll slowly be moving up, still following breezes, okay? And there's another 3 hours. He comes very close to the centre. He doesn't want to get on the other side because if he does, he'll get strong headwinds. The sea will become quite confusing in here, and there's still quite a lot of wind. It's only small. It's not a huge system, but it's tight and it's fast moving. That centre, you watch how far it moves when I click it another 3 hours. There's 3 hours, that's moved probably 50 miles or something, so or 30 miles. So there's 3 hours, there's another 3 hours, and depending on how this actually does, because the forecasting can be not quite accurate, Jean-Luc may end up with strong headwinds. When it comes to this, he'll pay off. He's not going to go to the east. He's going to tack on it or just sail it on port tack, and he'll start coming across northwest. So you might see some radical changes there, and eventually he might still end up with, by then he's probably over here somewhere, and 3 hours later you can see he's got some big winds. So I think he's going to get hit with 50 knots, 5-6 metre seas maybe. It's going to be short and sweet, but the direction's changing, so it's going to be quite challenging for him to manage the seas and hopefully look after the rig, touch wood. So there's a bit of hard work for Jean-Luc coming up, and then as this develops, again, he's got beam winds, but fortunately, looks like he'll still get favourable winds to keep going in this quadrant. You can see there, if I pull this down, the remnants of it keeps generally a southeasterly or southerly wind that's still going to push him up along the coast. So he's pretty happy. Now that's on the 4th. That's all happened in the 24 hours or 36 hours, that is. So if we go forward another day, on the 5th, so 2 days from now, there you go, exactly what Jean-Luc wants. He wants solid southerly winds to keep pushing, so provided he gets through that little blow, okay. Then we go through to the 7th, again, same thing. This thing's turned into a bit of a nightmare. He doesn't want to be over there, and let's just see what happens where it goes through to the 8th. There it is, the 8th, it's disappeared, but now, by the time it's 8th, so that's 3 days out, let's say he's made 130 miles a day. For 3 days, he's going to be 400 miles in front. So say, let's just see where 400 miles is. That's 500. So 400 is around about here. So Jean-Luc's going to run out of wind. You can see he's got this hole here. So he's going to slow down, and you're going to get a bit of this. Mark and Jean-Luc are in completely different weather systems, and when one slows down, the other might catch up, and then Mark might slow down, Jean-Luc will get away and increase the distance as well. So plenty to watch and see what happens over the next couple of months until they get home to Les Sables d'Olonne. That's about it. Thanks a lot. See you later on.